All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here middle of August here. I know it's kind of a surprise to probably see me go live. I needed a little bit of extra time this morning in order to do some prep for this particular show. Last night, got a little bit late. I didn't want to necessarily record until like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. So I just decided, let's go back to our good old tried and true. Let's go live here on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. If you do, always appreciate the folks, especially during the off season, that are sticking around and being consistent. But let me know if you would rather the lives going forward, or if you would rather not necessarily rather the recordings, but those I'm able to kind of record at various points during the off season to kind of help me prep. So always appreciate the love and support. On today's episode, we are going to discuss putting all starting lineups into a tier list. I went over to our old friend Tier Maker, and I've got all the NBA teams over there, and we're going to just throw those teams into a tier list. I've got a couple of different categories that I've put together, and we'll do that. We're also going to, if we have time for it, talk about Nikola Jokic in Serbia and playing on the Serbian national team for Eurobasket. Obviously, Serbia has looked very good over the course of this preparation period that they have had, and we will have to talk about just where they are at and what the expectations are at some point. So that starts, I believe, late next week, I want to say. So there's not a ton of pressure to get to that today if we don't get to it, but it's at least on the docket at some point here soon. Don't you worry. But yeah, without further ado, let's head on over to Tier Maker. Going through the tiers really quickly, as you can see, brought to you by Wrangler and the unfortunate ad blocker that will not go away. We're going to discuss different tiers. We've got championship caliber, elite, can make the playoffs, average to subpar, kind of in that. You'll say that they're average, but they're not really. A bad starting lineup, and then the worst of the worst starting lineups in the NBA. We've got 6 different tiers. Let's see if we could put these NBA teams into this tier list and talk about all the different starting lineups. And we're going to go in alphabetical order, starting with the Atlanta Hawks. Last night I kind of went through and prepped and made sure I had what I believe are the starting lineups for all of these different teams and in a good place here. Atlanta starting Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Zachary Risache, Jalen Johnson, and the newcomer Kristaps Porzingis, if they are so lucky to have him healthy. Obviously, trading for him with what was effectively a salary dump, it was a pretty impressive deal that they were able to put together. If he is healthy, that's the ultimate question. This starting lineup is actually surprisingly good. Risache is still a little bit he's still a little bit green in terms of you don't know what you're going to get from him on a consistent basis, but it fits together, this lineup. Sure, they could start Onyeka Okongwu instead, but I think I'm going to put them. Do I put them in the elite tier or the can make the playoffs tier? I think it's probably can make the playoffs, but they have the ability to get up to the elite tier. I will say that. Kind of surprising to think about that. Boston, Anthony Simons, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Chris Boucher, who they just signed this offseason to a minimum contract, and Neemias Queta. That's who I have for their particular starting lineup right now. And you let me know if there's something else I should be having in that group. I don't think so, to be honest. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what Boston actually looks like after they are, in fact, just damaged from the trades that they have made, as well as the Jason Tatum injury. I think I'm going to put them in average to subpar because the way that lineup looks, Derek White's obviously great. Jaylen Brown's obviously great. The rest of that is just weak. So we're going to put them here. I think that's the right place for them to be. They'll probably be in the play-in race. There's at least a possibility that some of their guys grow out of that. Like maybe Jordan Walsh is a guy that starts instead. They still have like Peyton Pritchard. He might start in place of Anthony Simons, or maybe they go small and they start a whole bunch of guards. I can't really see it though. Brooklyn, this one is pretty easy. You've got Igor Demon, Cam Thomas, Terrence Mann, Michael Porter Jr., and Nick Claxton. This one is worse than the Boston one. It's not like that's not really a hot take either. Like this group does not have the talent. The question is whether they're bad or worst of the worst. I kind of think they're worst of the worst. That's not a great sign for our guy Michael Porter, who has been in the news over the course of these past couple of weeks, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll see what they ultimately look like with him as their first option. But I am not expecting it to work well for obvious reasons. I think that he's got a lot of pressure on him, and there's just that's a heavy burden for anybody, but especially for Michael Porter, who hasn't been a first option in a long time. Charlotte's an interesting one. It's surprisingly good. Here's what I have for them: LaMelo Ball, Colin Sexton, who they traded Yusuf Nurkic for, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Mason Plumlee. When they gave up Yusuf Nurkic and they traded Mark Williams this offseason, they never really replaced that center position at all. They got Mason Plumlee on a minimum deal, and I kind of think that he's going to be their starter because Moussa Diabate probably a little bit too small to be their starter on a consistent basis. So I have no idea whether to like throw that one in bad, but I don't think it's actually a bad lineup. I think it's probably closer to average to subpar, kind of in that range. So I reserve the right to drop them lower, but they have more talent, especially with that starting group, than I think people would expect. Brandon Miller's pretty good. Colin Sexton is still pretty good. Miles Bridges, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about Miles Bridges. Chicago, this one was interesting. They traded for Isaac Okoro in the offseason for Lonzo Ball, also adding him to Kobe White, Josh Giddey, Matas Buzelis, who they drafted last year and I believe are going to stay committed to in the starting lineup this year, and Nikola Vucevic. Vucevic is obviously somebody that they could potentially shift out and either trade or buy out as they continue to go, but they don't necessarily have anybody great behind him. So it's not necessarily a great idea for them to do so unless they want to bottom out, which they probably should. But what I'm looking at here is kind of like Charlotte. This is not a bad starting lineup, I don't think. I honestly think that this is probably closer to that average to subpar tier like Boston's in. So I'm going to put them here, at least for now. But again, I'm probably going to redistribute these guys because now that I'm looking at it, probably, actually no, because it's more about the depth for a lot of these teams. So we'll keep it here for now and see if we make changes towards the end. Cleveland, I think, is it's one of the benefits of just putting all the money that they have into their lineup. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. That to me is a championship caliber group. That to me is not the question with most of what they've got going on. What they've got going on and some of the weak depth that they had, guys that, okay, you're suddenly no longer playable in a lot of these situations. What are you going to look like? What are you going to do? I don't necessarily have those questions with Cleveland's starters. Their group is great. The question is, are they going to have enough guys around those players that could, Max Strus in one of the elimination games last year, I think he shot 0 of 8 from the field, and you're going to get a lot of those kinds of performances from their fringes. But if those fringes were suddenly better, then this is a team that could win a title. The question is whether they actually will. Dallas, you've got D'Angelo Russell, who is replacing Kyrie Irving in the lineup this year, Klay Thompson. I've got Cooper Flagg in here, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively. See, to me, this one is also in that average to subpar tier. I actually don't think it's this. I think it's this. I'll move them up here to the top of this tier, but I honestly don't think that much of this Dallas lineup because like Klay is just like he's not the defender that he needs to be. D'Angelo Russell's not the defender that he needs to be anywhere close to it. They are trying to defend inside out with multiple rim protectors. And then Cooper Flagg is also going to be, oh, you know what? It is pretty talented, isn't it? Like that's better than what holy cow, these ads are just gross. Can we get rid of you? Yes, we can. Okay. You know what? We are going to move Dallas up. We'll move them up to the can make the playoffs tier. I don't necessarily feel great about it, but at least for now, we'll put them here because the talent is undeniable. Like you still have Anthony Davis, you still have Cooper Flagg, who you're going to be factoring in. So we'll be interested to see what it actually looks like with them. But that backcourt is bad. Like Najee Marshall is honestly probably better than Klay Thompson right now, at least from my perspective. The question is like, they've got D'Angelo Russell, and that's going to be pretty weak. Okay, Denver. This is what everybody came here for. You've got Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. To me, it's pretty easily championship caliber, right? Like we've been talking about them from the perspective of, hey, if you just have depth, then that is a great group. And now they have depth. Do they have an inordinate amount of depth? No. That I think is the difference between where some people are thinking about it and where I'm thinking about it. Like the depth is good. It's not great, but it doesn't necessarily matter in this conversation where, yeah, the starting lineup, even last year, Denver had a championship caliber starting lineup, and you think about it. They fit together very well. If they were healthy for the entire playoff run, then they might have won a title. And that really hurt them. But the depth was the big factor that actually put them into that position in the first place. So the hope is that now, like the starting lineup and the group that they have is good enough when put in an optimized position. And I think that they will be. So Denver is in a really good spot here. And just having a team, having a mix that is as balanced as this one is, should be very, very encouraging. The defense is still a little bit of a work in progress, but they have a chance, like along with Cleveland, to be the best offensive starting five in the entire NBA. And that to me is extremely encouraging. Detroit is, I actually think that their depth was what was really not entirely, but like having Isaiah Stewart coming off of your bench, having Malik Beasley before he was wanted by the government coming off the bench. Those were the big factors for why they got to the place where they were, just having the options that they did. They no longer have Tim Hardaway Jr. They no longer have Malik Beasley. They no longer have Dennis Schroeder. Now they are getting back Jaden Ivey. That should definitely help. Their starting lineup is Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Osar Thompson, Tobias Harris, Jalen Duren. I kind of think that's in that third tier. It's not in the elite tier. It's in this one. And the question is whether like they can rise above that. They have like the young talent that they have is capable, of course, to rise above that going forward. But whether they actually will with the fit that they have remains to be seen. I will say Osar Thompson definitely had less, I would say, fanfare than what Amen Thompson has had over the course of the past couple seasons. But he still has the potential to be one of the best defenders in the entire NBA. So if he does become that, if he has already like well on his way, then that changes the calculus for me. So we'll see what happens, but he's in a good spot there. Golden State. This one's an interesting one. Steph Curry, Brandon Podziemski, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Quinton Post. That's who I have right now. They've only got 9 players on their starting lineup. Now, if they do sign Al Horford, then you've got a slightly different group. But Al Horford may retire. Like there's no guarantee that he's actually on this list still. So I'm thinking, honestly, you probably have to keep it. Do you keep it here? You probably do, but like actually, here's a question. Who's more valuable right now? Is it Steph Curry or is it Cade Cunningham? Completely different situations, completely different responsibilities, but they are the best player and kind of the point guard for their teams. Who is better right now and drives more winning right now? I think is a fair question. It's not what you would expect to have to hear, but like I think that there is at least an argument for Cade, just with what the season that he had last year. So, but the other thing is that obviously Golden State still is Jimmy Butler. They still have Draymond Green. Draymond's fallen off a little bit. He's closer to like the 70s in terms of player ranking status. I think Jimmy Butler's closer to the 40s in player ranking status. But I still think that those guys are mostly better than what Detroit has. So it's shaky. But then again, right now I have them starting Quinton Post. So that balances it out. Couple more before we hit a break. Let's go Houston. Houston's got to be elite, right? I don't think that they are quite in the upper echelon of championship caliber. Like, I actually don't think that they are quite at that championship caliber status quite yet. But at this point, there's like anything is, of course, possible. I think that so the lineup right now is Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Şengün. That's good. It is a really, really, really good lineup. One of the things that was so important about Houston last year was the depth that they had, the ability to kind of mix and match different guys, like having Tari Eason, Dorian Finney-Smith. They had more like guard depth last year because they had to trade some guys out for this particular season to get Kevin Durant. But then again, they got Kevin Durant. So like, is it elite or is it championship caliber? That is the question. Right now, I'm going to put them in elite, but I reserve the right to move them up. Like actually, well, it is a really, really good lineup. The question is just how those guys are going to fit together. And I think it's at least a fair question. So we'll see what it looks like, but that to me is a very good group. Indiana, obviously no Tyrese Halliburton right now. Instead, you have Andrew Nemhard, Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam. And right now I have Tony Bradley starting for them. They let go of Miles Turner. They also let go of Thomas Bryant, if people didn't realize that. They currently have Tony Bradley, James Wiseman. They re-signed Isaiah Jackson, and both of those guys tore their ACLs, I believe, prior to like really early in the season. So they're going back to those guys in what should be kind of a reset year for them, kind of an in-between year. But I don't like the look of that group. That to me is no longer in the can make the playoffs tier, at least from a starting lineup perspective. They still have the depth, especially in the middle of the floor. Like TJ McConnell's still one of the better backup point guards in the entire NBA. They still have some young guys, Ben Shepherd, Johnny Furphy, Jarris Walker should be getting more opportunities going forward. They've still got some guys that I think you can trust, but I think they're closer to the average to subpar tier in this particular mix. And that's too bad because they were just in a really great place and they shouldn't be in this tier. If they still had Tyrese Halliburton, I think they would have paid Miles Turner or at least Thomas Bryant. So we'll see whether that changes, but I do think that it's just too bad where we're seeing them right now. We'll go with the two Lakers or the two LA teams and then take a break. The Clippers, you have right. It's kind of shaky. You have James Harden, Bradley Beal. I have Derek Jones Jr. starting for them, but it could be Chris Dunn. You have Kawhi Leonard and Ivica Zubac. They also have a couple of other guys that you could throw out there, like a John Collins, who they traded Norman Powell for. Like, it's very possible that they just decide to start John Collins, but I don't know if that's the right call for them. It's a little big, it's a little clunky. Starting that way is, of course, a choice, but it's more of a traditional starting lineup. Whereas Kawhi Leonard, I feel like, is more of a power forward at this point. And you need a little bit more mobility and space around Harden in order to thrive. But maybe that's not true. We'll see what it ultimately looks like. But for this particular lineup, it is still really good. Like, Zubats had a great year. Harden had a great year. Kawhi, when he was healthy, was driving winning. So I would put them here from a starting lineup perspective, but it honestly could go down here. There is a difference between Houston and LA from a starting lineup perspective. I kind of think that Houston's is better, but I'm not sure they are disparate enough to be in different tiers. We'll keep them in this one for now. The Lakers, I honestly kind of want to put in the same place because I think they are better from a starting lineup perspective than these other teams below them. You've got, of course, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, and DeAndre Ayton. That's a talented group. I know that there's a lot of people that have problems with that group. It doesn't defend well enough. You don't know what you're going to get from Ayton. There's going to be some motivation concerns. LeBron is kind of being dramatic and trying to figure out what he wants to do. Is at least it's certainly a chore for just about everybody in the entire NBA. But I think it's fair to have them in this elite tier. It's an unfortunate reality that they were able to finagle Luka Doncic out of people, but it is still a thing. So look, it is what it is, and we're just gonna have to deal with it. But I do think that is a very talented group. For what it's worth, according to FanDuel, the Nuggets are minus 2,500 to make the playoffs this year. And looking at where it currently stands right now, it's pretty impressive with all of the teams. Like, you've got Houston, you've got LA, you've got the two LA teams in the elite tier. You've got Dallas, you've got Golden State that are in the can make the playoffs tier. You've got a lot. I haven't even thrown out a bad Western Conference team yet. So the fact that Denver's minus 2,500 on FanDuel is very impressive, and it's probably going to keep going. So we'll see what happens. But when we come back, we're going to get into the rest of the Western Conference and some of these other teams here on the other side here for Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. I'm taking my time with this. Unfortunately, I should probably speed it up just a little bit to try to get through every team. So let's get into it. Keeping going with the Memphis Grizzlies, you've got Ja Morant, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Zach Edey. That is also, like, honestly, I kind of like that starting lineup better than some of the, like, certainly some of the other ones that we've talked about. I don't think it's in the elite tier, but I do think it's at the top of this can make the playoffs tier. Do I like them better than Atlanta? Yeah, I think I do. I honestly think I do. So we're going to put Memphis up here. And then I might, as I said, I might reserve the right to drop some of these other teams to the average tier instead, like Dallas and Golden State. Miami is a different one. Although it is the same basic way that they actually, it's not the same. I've changed it up. You've got Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware, the rookie center that they had last year, who's now a sophomore. They were starting Davion Mitchell and playing him on the ball last year. I don't know if that's the way that they're going to go. Like, it would be weird for them to trade for Norman Powell like this and then just not start him. But would you start him over Andrew Wiggins? Would you move those guys down a peg? Would you move Bam to center, Wiggins to power forward, and then add Davion Mitchell? I kind of think that they want to keep Khalil Ware in there. So I'm going to give this one, like, you've got Wiggins, you've got Powell. I think it's kind of average, honestly. It's probably at the top of this particular group. It's better, I think, than some of these other teams. The problem with Miami is they always never have depth. And a lot of the reason for that is because they pay so much to the top guys on their roster. But they've also got like Terry Rozier, who's not going to be helpful at all. So that's a tough place for them to be, but I think that's where it should be. Milwaukee is in an interesting place for their franchise. You've got Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Miles Turner. What can one player do? Can one player elevate a starting lineup up to the can make the playoffs tier by himself? I don't think so. I honestly that is not a good starting lineup. If Giannis is actually able to get them into the top 6, that to me is a real testament to who he is as a player because that is a shaky prospect for sure. Okay, I'm officially moving Charlotte and Chicago down to the bad tier because that looks a little bit more visually appealing, but that's tough. Like Giannis is in a really tough place for himself and for his franchise. Hopefully he could turn it around because good Lord, that's tough. Minnesota, I think, is in the elite tier. I don't think they're quite in championship caliber. They still have Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert. There's at least a part of me that wanted to put Dante DiVincenzo in place of Mike Conley. They might decide to do that. We'll see whether they actually can or not. I think it's fair to have some questions about Minnesota, but I mean, face it, they were a really good team last year and still made it to the Western Conference Finals despite some struggles. I think that they're a good team. Nuggets fans have the respect of they respect Minnesota. They hate Minnesota, and I don't blame them. So the question is whether Conley drops them down too much. I don't think so. I think it's still fair to have in this particular grouping. New Orleans, you've got Jordan Poole, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy III, Zion Williamson, and Yves Missi, rookie who they had last year is now a sophomore. Herb Jones was not healthy for most of the season. Trey Murphy was by himself. Zion Williamson, if he's out there, is great. Jordan Poole, surprisingly good year from Jordan Poole last year. I don't know whether that's going to translate or not. This is an interesting one. I have no idea how to handle it. I do think it's better than Charlotte and Chicago, but is it good enough to be in that average to subpar tier? Like the question with New Orleans is the talent is never the question, really. It's their health. It's how they fit together, things like that. But I think they're still good. They'll go at the top of bad. But honestly, it's a better starting lineup than Boston's. So no, we're gonna put it at least in this tier. I honestly think that they have that is a pretty good starting lineup. And the question is, will it stay healthy? No, but that's not what I can grade it on right now. I think from a talent perspective, they deserve to be in that kind of average to subpar tier. The Knicks are interesting. They are obviously a very high-profile group and one of those groups that you're obviously going to have a lot of thoughts on. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns. To me, honestly, it is a championship caliber starting 5. They don't have enough depth, kind of like Denver. They're mirrors of each other. They don't have enough depth, but the starters are great. That's never the question. I think that this is a pretty reasonable place for them. OKC, same thing. Maybe they should actually. I think honestly, I think Denver's is the best starting 5 in the NBA. I think Cleveland is next, New York is next, and then OKC. I honestly think that that's probably the right call. OKC, obviously, you have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein. A lot of talent in that group. Don't get me wrong. I do think that the way Denver's fits together makes more sense for this particular exercise. But from a player ranking standpoint, I think I had Christian Brown as the worst of the players in those, like between Denver and OKC starting five. But like I could justify him being better than Lou Dort for sure. I could also say he's better than Isaiah Hartenstein. Would that be right? I don't know, but like they're in the same tier, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops. But from this perspective, OKC, like they have a championship. I mean, clearly it was championship caliber. They won, but honestly, Denver starters were pretty good when it came to facing OKC. So should be noted. Orlando, Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bain, who they just traded for, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. That's clearly elite. The question is whether it is championship caliber or not. I'm gonna keep them in elite. We'll put them up here though. That is a good group. Like that is a very, very talented group. If they can stay healthy, if they can stay together, there's no question that they should be able to fit. Like to me, Desmond Bain is kind of that Aaron Gordon trade that Denver made back in 2021. I don't think that Paolo that's obviously not the level of Jokic, and Franz has had moments that have peaked higher than Murray, but never in the playoffs to that degree. So we'll see what happens. But Orlando starting five, that's not the question. Like it's their depth, it's their ability to score behind the group that they have, but they've paid that group a lot of money for a reason. So I'm pretty impressed with that group. Philly, this is a shaky one. Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Kelly Oubre Jr., Paul George, Joel Embiid. It's not a bad lineup. I'm not sure it's a great lineup. If you told me that Embiid is playing in it, if you told me that all of those guys are playing in it and they're like 90th percentile health outcome, then I think it's in a can make the playoffs tier. It's probably fair. We'll put it. I think it's better than Detroit's lineup. I do. So we'll put it here. And we're going to move Dallas down to the end here. But yeah, Phillies is actually, it's a pretty solid group. But again, it's not the question. The question is whether they're actually going to stay healthy enough and be consistent enough on a like an every night basis. Probably not. But I mean, at the outset, you just name the names, and if they're healthy, then they'll be there. But they're pretty weak on the defensive side of things outside of Embiid, and putting all that pressure on Embiid defensively is probably an issue. So they need more size. They need more athleticism. They need more defense. Unfortunately, they don't have it. Phoenix, this is a bad starting lineup. Like this is actually, I think, a pretty fair place for them. Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Royce O'Neal, Dylan Brooks, Mark Williams. Like Devin Booker's great. He, I think, is one of the top 20 players in the NBA or so. Very talented. The problem that you run into is that none of the rest of it really fits together. Like Dylan Brooks will be helpful for them. Mark Williams will be a good roller for them, but that is just not cohesive enough. And they don't have enough playmaking out of the rest of their team. I don't think you can trust many of those guys. The talent is there with Booker and Green specifically, but I don't think it's a very good lineup. So I actually think it's one of the worst in the NBA, clearly. Like, would I rather have Charlotte's or Phoenix's? Like, you've got, for obvious reasons, I think I'd rather have Phoenix's because there's just so much going on with Charlotte. But like Chicago, would I rather have Chicago starting lineup or Phoenix's starting lineup? Booker definitely helps, so I'll put him up here. Actually, I'll put that in this order. But like, that's tough. I think I'd fine with this. Portland. This one is interesting. You've got Scoot Henderson currently in this lineup. Actually, no, I changed this out. So they're going if they go all defense and they go all veteran, You've got Drew Holiday, Tumani Kamara, Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, and Donovan Clingan. That's what I currently have as that group. It is shaky because you've got like Kamara's a great perimeter defender. Drew Holiday, obviously a great perimeter defender. I think you have to manage him a little bit at his age. Jeremy Grant is not a good offensive player from a leadership standpoint and what you need to drive offense. They're hoping Denny Avdia can do that, but that is a really bad offensive group. So they'll get some stuff with the defense itself, but from an offensive standpoint, it's not a good lineup. So I think you probably have to have them in this bad tier. They still have talent, and I think that there is justification. Like if you have Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp, they've got Hansen Yang, like they should have some talent there, but whether they actually take advantage of it remains to be seen. Stefan says, pretty bad list, to be honest. Tell me what you're arguing with it. What's wrong with it? This is starting lineups consistently. It's from like a talent perspective, expected impacts perspective. Tell me what you don't like about it. Snowwolf says Ryan makes the best charts. I'm always impressed with the detail. Thank you. It's Tier Maker. This is from Tier Maker is great with this, and fortunately they have all of the stuff that you need in order to make something good. You have now the Sacramento Kings. Let's see Sacramento Kings on this list. So you've got Dennis Schroeder, who they really had to sign for some reason. I had it as Dennis Schroeder, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, and Domantas Sabonis. To me, it doesn't fit together at all. It's talented. Like it's a pretty solid group from a talent perspective. And if you told me each of those guys individually, then that's fine. It just isn't cohesive to me in any way, shape, or form. So I'm probably going to go average to subpar, but like the actual talent level perspective of it is not the question. It is the fit. It's like what each of those guys are going to be asked to do. So it is going to be around here. And the question is actually, okay, like, are they going to be more consistent? Because like last year, for example, they were running like 8-man rotations, kind of like Denver, but like Keon Ellis was very important to them. Trey Lyles, when he was healthy, was very important to them, but they would run these small rotations on a consistent basis because they didn't trust the rest of their depth. So see what happens. The Spurs, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Victor Wembanyama. You could go with a couple of different lineups for this Spurs team. They've got so many guys that I think like you don't necessarily need Harrison Barnes in there. You don't need Devin Vassell in there. Dylan Harper, somebody that they just drafted, obviously. So we'll see what it ultimately looks like. But I do think that it's okay. Like Wemby will obviously push them up pretty high in this particular list, and they've got Fox too. So is it can they make the playoffs tier? I think it probably is. I think they're probably better than the Mavericks. Are they better than the Warriors from a starting lineup perspective? I don't know. I don't know. It's a fair question, but according to FanDuel, for what it's worth, to make the playoffs, the following teams, and these are the Western Conference teams, have the following odds to make the playoffs. San Antonio is at -152. Dallas is at -106. Memphis is at +132. Sacramento +370. Portland at +430. And Phoenix +640. I think if I'm kind of using that in the barometer for this list, I kind of like Memphis to like in those odds. Like you think, okay, Memphis, what are the actual odds? +132. Yeah, I think they can make the playoffs. I think might be a little bit overreactionary to losing Desmond Bane. They still got back a couple of guys. They're going to get better. Jalen Wells will get better. They've still got some other depth pieces, but the fit of KCP makes a lot of sense with that group. Finally, last three teams here, you've got Toronto, Utah, and Washington. Toronto's is actually like kind of like Sacramento It's talented. It's just not like it doesn't fit at all. Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Pertl. I mean, each of those guys individually is pretty good. The question is how they fit together and what they're going to be expected to do. And I don't think you can expect that much from them. But like, as currently constructed, are they better than like it's better than Boston starting lineup? So like kind of like New Orleans, I think that's a fair assessment. Kind of like Sacramento, that's a fair assessment. They are pretty good, but they're probably not like much like they're not in the can you make the playoffs tier. Not yet. And then you've got Utah and Washington. Utah, I think, is in the worst of the worst. They do not have enough talent to really justify being much higher than this. They've got Isaiah Collier, Keontae George. I haven't decided whether they're going to start Bryce Sensabaugh or rookie Ace Bailey. They've got Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler. Like those individually like are pretty solid. Markkanen killing the Eurobasket prep, by the way, for Finland. It's interesting to see him when he's fully unleashed. Kind of forgotten how good he can be because of how he has been in Utah over the course of these past few years. But I do think that that's perfectly reasonable to be worst of the worst tier. But Washington, I think, is a tier above that. CJ McCollum, I have Kaishan George in their starting lineup. Maybe that's wrong, but you've got CJ McCollum, Kaishan George, Bilal Coulibaly, who got hurt last year, but pretty talented and had some pretty good plays and good perspective to add to a group like that. Chris Middleton, somebody that they traded for. I have him starting at the 4 for them. And then Alex Sarr will be their starting 5. There are obviously some reasons why you would have them in the worst of the worst, but I'm going to throw them in the bottom of the bad tier. Like, I don't think they're going to quite be the worst of the worst. I think Utah will try to be, Brooklyn will try to be, but Washington has enough talent that I think you can justify going with them instead. Okay, that's basically what I've got. That's my list. From this perspective, is this yeah, we'll screenshot this and we'll throw it up on Twitter as well. Give me your votes. Like, which team is worst placed on here? Which team is best placed on here? Which ones do you agree with? Which ones do you disagree with? And obviously, don't hesitate to call me out and say I'm really bad at this. But that's my list. That's what I've got. We'll do Nikola Jokic's Eurobasket trip next time. We'll do it on Thursday. I think that's probably fair. And we'll get into some other things over the course of the next week. But fun way to spend an August 19th here in the morning during the off season. But we're having a good time. Let me know what you think of that particular list. But that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, folks, on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.